Hello and welcome to the Sidebar presented by True Crime News, taking you inside the courtrooms of high-profile and notorious cases from across the country. I'm your host, Joshua Ritter. I'm a criminal defense lawyer based in Los Angeles and previously an LA County prosecutor for nearly a decade. You can find me on all social media at Joshua Ritter ESQ or at joshuaritter.com. We are recording this on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. In this week's episode, rapper Jay-Z facing shocking allegations after a lawsuit claiming he and Diddy assaulted a 13-year-old girl. Plus, the suspected shooter of a healthcare CEO contesting his extradition after he was apprehended in a days-long manhunt. But first, the murder trial of a man accused of killing an LGBTQ student to hide their relationship. Today, we are joined by Melanie Little, a seasoned litigator and legal analyst you can find on YouTube at attorney Melanie Little. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you again.
I have been looking forward to this. I am a big fan of the commentary that you do on YouTube. I always appreciate how thoughtful you are, and I know that you've built a tremendous community of people who appreciate that as well. So thank you again for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Very interesting cases this week. Some are all over the news and a couple not so much. So let's just go ahead and jump first right in to Oxford, Mississippi, where a man facing charges for the murder of an LGBTQ student will soon discover his fate after both sides rested in the tragic case. Jimmy J. Lee, a 20-year-old University of Mississippi student, was declared missing in July of 2022 before a judge declared Lee dead in October of this year. Sheldon Timothy Herrington Jr. was arrested weeks after the disappearance, with prosecutors claiming Herrington murdered Lee to conceal the pair's romantic relationship. In the absence of a body, prosecutors have laid out a strong circumstantial case, including messages from Herrington's devices, surveillance footage, and eyewitness accounts. According to prosecutors, messages exchanged between the two indicate that Herrington was not openly gay and that Lee was Herrington's first same-sex relationship. After Lee attempted to block Herrington on social media, the defendant allegedly lured Lee back to his residence before conducting a chilling Google search, seeking advice on how to strangle someone. Sometime later, Herrington was allegedly seen retrieving a shovel and a wheelbarrow from his parents' home. Meanwhile, Lee was never seen again. While the charge is capital murder, prosecutors are not seeking the death penalty, and deliberations will be underway by the time you're hearing this. In fact, shortly before we began to record, the jury indicated that they might be deadlocked, and the judge sent them back to deliberate further. All right, Melanie, we hear a lot, it seems. I don't know if we're just noticing it more or it's happening more, but we're seeing a lot of these quote unquote no body cases. And you oftentimes hear how they can be difficult for the prosecution, or more difficult. But I'm curious as to your opinion, and especially in this case in particular, do you feel like there's enough circumstantial evidence here?
There's so much circumstantial evidence, but you never know what a jury's going to do. I mean, you've got all of these Snapchat messages between the two. You've got Google searches that are incriminating. You've got phone pings showing his location all around kind of town. He was at Walmart, I think at a little after 6:30 in the morning, buying duct tape. I mean, they've put together a very strong circumstantial case. And while no body cases are not impossible, they can be very difficult. So it'll be interesting to see what the jury says on this one. They've been out right now for a little over 4 hours, and hopefully we'll know something today. Yeah. I'm not sure.
It's funny to me because I hear people on TV and commentators, whenever it's a no body case, it's kind of everyone jumps to that conclusion that, oh boy, this is going to be a difficult one for the prosecution. And I agree. There are some difficulties of it, but sometimes there's advantages too, especially, when you have a case where it's not like they found a dead body and the defendant is saying it was an accident. Now they got to deal with that. But in this case, they've got all of the after conduct, all of the cleanup, all of the hiding, all of the Google searching. It almost makes it a little stronger to know that that person was actually involved in that person's death. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do. And also you have him with the shovel and the wheelbarrow, and then they have him on video jogging away from the location where Lee's car was found or dumped,
right,
which is just a little too coincidental.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
There was a recent case in California in Bakersfield. I don't know if you remember this one. It was Jacqueline and Trezell West, who were convicted of murdering their 2 young boys that they were fostering and had adopted, Classic and Sincere. And then bodies were not found in that case, and they were both convicted. And there was a lot less circumstantial evidence than there is in this case. But again, different jurisdiction. We're in Mississippi. It's a capital murder case, but they said they're not going for the death penalty in this case. And the defense didn't really they didn't call any experts, first of all. They called maybe 3 or 4 witnesses. All of them were character witnesses and family members or friends. But they did poke a lot of holes, I thought, in the prosecution's case by pointing out all of the other suspects that were so quickly ruled out in this case.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, hard to say whether a jury can be completely deadlocked after only 4 hours, but I'll be interested to see if the judge decides to give them the Allen charge like they did in the Penny case that we handled together.
Yes, likely. I mean, if they've only been out for 4 hours in a case of this seriousness, I can almost just imagine a judge saying, march right back around and get back in there. You're not even at the point yet where you should be thinking about being deadlocked. But you make an interesting point about the defense that I want to hear more of your thoughts on.
Mm-hmm.
They did kind of present this idea, or at least suspicion, that there were other people in the victim's life that may have had a reason to, or an opportunity to be involved in this. What if jurors feel like other people could have been involved, but they still feel like the defendant was involved? Do you think that will create enough confusion with the jurors that they might have a problem convicting?
Well, I think that that's reasonable doubt, right? If they're sitting back there saying, well, it could have been this guy too, there's your reasonable doubt right there. I mean, if you are not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the prosecution proved their case, that Tim Herrington did this, you have to find him not guilty.
Last question on this case. The defense, in closing arguments, Herrington's father took the stand, testifying that he didn't know about his son's sexuality. This was highlighted, I should say, in closing arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a central theme to the prosecution's argument for motive here. What do you think about that, that use of the sexuality of the defendant and the victim, and the kind of playing the struggle that the defendant may have had with his own sexuality as a means for murder, as a motive for murder?
Well, that's what that's their story, and they're sticking to it, the prosecution. And yet there were no messages between the two that had anything to really do with that. Like the decedent never said, I'm going to out you. There were no threats made towards him. He comes from a family, the defendant, his grandfather's a pastor in the church. And so, in New York, I don't really know that would be a great motive in New York, but I can't speak to what goes on in Mississippi. And
that's a good point. So,
we live in New York and California. We're in 2 completely different jurisdictions, and it's hard to say what was going on inside the defendant's head. His father just getting up there and saying, oh, I would have still loved my son, whether I found out that he was gay or not, doesn't really go to what the defendant thought would happen in his head, how his father would react to that. So, I mean, I can see where if that's the only motive they have, then that's what they're going with, because there's really no strong forensic evidence other than cell phone forensics. And, there's no blood, there's no DNA. I mean, I didn't hear any of that stuff. Did you? Fingerprints. No. I mean, there's none of that stuff. You have no physical evidence tying him to this crime. So highly circumstantial in that respect.
Yeah. You make a good point, because maybe it was one of those situations where the prosecution just felt like they were left with no other motive. Mm-hmm. And they felt like they couldn't go into this without providing the jurors with some sort of motive to hang their hats on. But I agree with you. It may have been treated very differently in different jurisdictions. But like we said, they're continuing to deliberate, at least as we're doing this recording. They have indicated that they may have come to some sort of impasse, but we will see and keep you updated as to how that all turns out.
If you've ever worried about the safety of your home and your family, there is no better time to act. Right now, SimpliSafe is extending its massive Black Friday deal for our listeners. Get 50% off a new SimpliSafe security system. SimpliSafe is the home security that I trust. I've been using it for years and love the peace of mind that it brings, knowing that my home is protected 24/7. Get 50% off today just by visiting simplisafe.com/truecrime. This is your last chance to protect your home at SimpliSafe's lowest price of the year. One of the ways SimpliSafe makes me feel so safe is because I'm getting protection before someone tries to break in. Other systems only do something once someone is already inside, but with SimpliSafe, I know that they've added a layer of help. If someone is lurking around or acting suspiciously, those agents see them in real time, talk to them directly, set off your spotlights, even call police before they've had a chance to break in. The other thing I really appreciate about SimpliSafe is that there isn't a long-term contract required. It ends up costing about $1 a day for protection. SimpliSafe is extending its massive Black Friday deal for our listeners. This week only, you can get 50% off any new system with a select professional monitoring plan. This is your last chance to claim their best offer of the year. Head to simplisafe.com/truecrime. That's simplisafe.com/truecrime. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Let's turn to New York, where another hip-hop mogul has been implicated in the illegal sex scandal surrounding Diddy after a lawsuit alleging that the pair sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl. Jay-Z, born Sean Carter, and Sean Diddy Combs are accused of assaulting the teen as an unnamed female celebrity watched on. The alleged assault occurred after the MTV Music Video Awards in 2000, when Jay-Z was nominated for the song Big Pimpin'. The victim claims that she was taken to an after party and forced to sign what she believed was an NDA and then given a drink that made her feel woozy. Carter has vehemently denied the claims, calling the attorney representing the victim, quote, an ambulance chaser in a cheap suit. The attorney, Tony Busby, is representing over 100 different victims filing lawsuits alleging sexual misconduct against Combs, and that number could continue to rise ahead of Diddy's trial. The real question is if any other high-profile figures will be implicated in the process. Melanie, Jay-Z's lawyer, there's this a lot of, how do I describe this? Chest puffing that seems to be going on between Jay-Z's team. He made this, he released this statement that was several paragraphs long, where he spent a large part of it attacking the plaintiff's attorney, this Mr. Busby. Busby then responded with, not to be outdone, with his own kind of chest puffing, saying, come at me. I'm a former Marine, I think is what he said. But first of all, Jay-Z's statement kind of spectacularly didn't do a bunch of denying, but instead attacked the attorney. I guess what is happening here? Why all the shots being fired at the attorneys and the people rather than kind of concentrating on saying, I have nothing to do with this?
This has been the worst kept secret for 24 years, right? In Hollywood and in New York, because these freak offs were happening right out here in the Hamptons near where I live. And this particular case, which is right now only a civil case, is from 24 years ago. So right now it's not a criminal case. I think, I would think that Jay-Z may be very afraid that it could turn criminal because they are going after P. Diddy in New York criminally under a lot of federal charges. And this is going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of videotape, from what I understand, that was seized from P. Diddy's houses. And apparently there are a lot of celebrities that have been caught on tape. We've been hearing about this for years and years and years, as you know. Yeah. It's just nobody's ever been named until now.
Yeah. It's funny to me, too, because if we know now that this lawsuit was filed originally back in October, and it wasn't only until recently that Jay-Z was added to it. There was also some discussion about a mediation taking place that fell apart. My point is this. In civil cases, it's not a surprise. They know something's coming. Usually the plaintiff side has reached out to the defense side and said, we want money. You've wronged us. We want money. Way before lawsuits are filed and way before it ever becomes public. So it seemed to me like they may have been playing a game of chicken that fell apart. And if that is true, then I think Jay-Z's team made a real strategic blunder here, because now his name is associated with Diddy. It's all over the news. We're talking about a 13-year-old girl. Just awful fallout for him, no?
The allegations are horrific. Absolutely horrific. A 13-year-old girl, horrific. And they're saying that there's another female A-lister that was present while this whole thing was going on. So, we have no idea who that could be. It is very common for plaintiffs' attorneys to send defendants, claim letters initially and then demand letters. And my understanding was that the last demand letter was, why don't we go to mediation and see if we can work this out before we make it public? So while some people may see that as a threat, it's typically done in civil litigation. It's not something that's very uncommon. And Busby's got over 100 clients that he's representing against Diddy. So there's that. There's a lot of litigation here. A lot of litigation in all different states.
It seems to me that part of winning for Jay-Z would be to keep his name out of all this mess.
Yeah.
And if that is part of it, we're talking millions in endorsements and business deals and everything else. And to kind of be like, go ahead and bring it. You would think they would write any kind of check to make this go away. But instead, they've kind of, like you said, maybe there's ongoing beef between his attorneys and Busby for years and years, and it all fell apart. But I feel like this is already putting Jay-Z in the lose column as far as public perception is concerned.
Yeah, reputation, everything. It's a career. It's a life, Maybe he should have taken them up on the offer. But then again, celebrities are like, listen, once I do this with one person, everyone's going to come after me just because I have a lot of money. And he's vehemently denying this. Like, he says this did not happen. He's vehemently denying it. But who knows if there are any other plaintiffs that are going to have the same or similar allegations against him if he and Diddy were, frequent pals.
And the question everybody keeps on asking, and you kind of alluded to it, do you think this is just the beginning? Are we going to hear more influential names? I know that some have already kind of come up in the gossip sphere. Do you think that more people might be implicated in this? Yeah,
I think this is the first one to be made public. And I think that's sort of like a warning to like everyone else who thinks maybe they are involved and they don't want it to get out. They're going to be like, oh, I'll go to mediation, just to squash it. Because if there's any beads of truth to this will ruin him.
Yeah, that's my point too, is that it was a very different world pre-Puffy being arrested. Before then, I think you could see these celebrities being like, well, I'll write a check, but I'm not writing a check to everybody. And there was kind of this idea that they've been protected for so long, they can still maintain that. Yeah. But once Diddy got indicted and the man's sitting in jail as we speak, you would think that every single celebrity associated with that man would be, how many zeros would you like me to put on this check to make this all go away?
Right. And, we thought we were going to see that with Epstein. Right? Because there was these rumblings of this black book and all of these people that were going to be implicated that had been to Epstein's Island and all of these people. And then look what happened there. And never did get out, did it?
No.
So
that's a whole other episode for a whole other day. But I agree with you. It does, but I feel like the walls are closing in on some of the people who used to exist in Diddy's circle. But we will see. It's continuing to develop. The grand jury has been convened. I don't think this is the end of it.
You all have heard me talk about Acorns before, but this time of year, it's more important than ever. I know that over the holidays, it is hard to avoid spending money, let alone saving it. There are the holiday gifts, the dinners out, the trips to see family. It's a lot of things that add up. That's where Acorns can come in. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for you, your kids, your retirement, even during the holidays. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you. You also don't need a ton of time. You can create your Acorns account and start automatically investing your money in just 5 minutes. And you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money that you've got right now. That could be $5 a day or even just your spare change. That's right. Acorns can round every purchase you make up to the dollar and automatically invest your spare change for you. And you can get bonus investment just for buying the stuff you need from the brands that you love. Investing and planning for your future is so important, and it can be overwhelming and complicated, but it's important to get a handle on it before it's too late. Acorns is a great and easy way to get started. Head to acorns.com/truecrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Paid non-client endorsement compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, view important disclosures at acorns.com/truecrime.
Let's stay in New York for our final case, where days after the brazen shooting of a CEO, police say they've apprehended the gunman, but they have another hurdle to overcome to return him to the city of the crime. Luigi Mangione has been charged with the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside of a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The manhunt to catch the shooter culminated in an arrest at a McDonald's restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after Mangione was recognized by a patron who called authorities. Police say Mangione was in possession of multiple fake IDs, along with a 3D printed firearm and suppressor, and a 3-page manifesto that criticized the healthcare system. Now, Mangione's defense is contesting the man's extradition, though New York Governor Kathy Hochul has indicated she will issue a warrant to return the man to face charges. Meanwhile, Mangione will remain behind bars without bond as the debate about privatized healthcare carries on in his absence.
Where do we even start with this?
Yeah, where do we even start?
Where do we even start?
Help us understand a little bit, as much as you can, about the extradition. Is fighting this going to get them anywhere? Is there any advantage? Is this just kind of a certainty waiting to happen?
It's going to happen. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is going to sign a warrant. But what it does is it buys them time. So right now he's being held in Pennsylvania, and he's not agreeing to extradition. So he's going to fight it. His attorney has come out and said, yeah, we haven't seen any evidence. We haven't seen any evidence. Show us some evidence. So by fighting the extradition, it keeps him there for maybe up to 30 days, during which time, perhaps, the New York authorities are going to come and give them some evidence so that at least they know what they're dealing with. Right now, they don't know what they're dealing with in their case against Mangione. So this is going to be another interesting one.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one to me. I think mainly for how brazen it was. The person who's involved, we're now finding out came from a very wealthy family.
Mm-hmm.
It just, all of it doesn't seem to make sense. But he was on some sort of crusade. He was trying to send some sort of message. I mean, we've got the writing on the bullet casings. We've got his backpack recovered with Monopoly money inside of it. Now this manifesto. I love how they call it a manifesto. Right. Whenever the ramblings of some crazy person leaves behind somehow gets this grandiose term of a manifesto, but he leaves behind these writings. If you're the defense, what are you thinking you can do to possibly defend this man at this point?
I think you have to right now is a waiting game. Right now it's just like, what do they have? What do they have? They've got a lot of surveillance video of a guy with a mask on. People are doing these side-by-side comparisons of these photos, right? The closed circuit photo from like the hostel compared to the Starbucks, compared to the outside the Hilton Hotel, and they look like different people. I think right now they're hoping for maybe mistaken identity. But it's interesting because what was he doing in McDonald's? Like, he, first of all, he didn't get that far away. He's only in Pennsylvania. There are some rumblings that there is another major health insurance company headquartered in or near Altoona that maybe he had another mission, in his head that he wanted to perform.
Well, it's interesting, not to cut you off. He's still got a weapon on him, right? You would think that would be thing number one he would ditch, but he's still carrying a weapon on him. But continue. But that, to your point.
And I just saw a breaking story, in the New York Post, which is, usually they vet their sources, that perhaps the shell casings that they found at the scene matched the gun that they found on Mangione when he was picked up. So that will be something that's just going to be too hard to overcome. I have a lot of questions about this. They come from a very well-known family in Maryland. His cousin Nino is a Republican elected official. He's a delegate in Baltimore County, Maryland. And when I was doing a little bit of research on this the other day, I found a Facebook video, and Nino Mangione has a video of him just a couple of months ago, like trying to bring the death penalty back to Maryland. And I thought, wow, that's what odd timing this is, now that his cousin has just been arrested on its second-degree murder in New York, because there's no special circumstances that make it first degree. And also New York doesn't have the death penalty, but very interesting.
Yeah. It's from the defense perspective, honestly, if the defense had their way, I would think that they might be pursuing some sort of mental defense to say that he, there's been all this news that there was a huge change and shift in his personality because he had this injury to his back and he had a surgery. Again, I'm going off of reports. I don't know how much of all of this is true, but that maybe perhaps there's some argument to be made that, the pain he was dealing with and the mental crisis he went through and the medications, some prescribed, some not, that he was taking, maybe that affected his mental health. That's what I would think as the strategy, given all the evidence the defense might go down. I'm going to make a bold prediction, though. Did you see him being brought into the courtroom recently and he's shouting at the reporters?
Yes.
Did you see that footage?
I did.
Then there's reports that when he was inside, he was kind of very combative and he's kind of looking and staring at people in the audience and telling his attorney to be quiet at certain points and things like that. I think this man was on such a mission, and I think that part of that mission may have included martyrdom in the sense of being arrested. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends in some sort of plea where he just wants to give some sort of statement. I think that to him, this is not going to be a traditional defense where he's going to try to hide what he did. I feel like he's proud of what he did. He wanted to send a message. And as long as he's given some platform to promote that, he might take it. I don't know.
It's possible, but I mean, what has he got to lose by going? If he does take the case to trial, it's more fame and more getting to tell his story and everything else, right? There is no death penalty, so there's nothing they can really offer him to entice him to say, "Oh, let me make a deal," right? What are they going to? I mean, he's 26 years old. Yeah. He's looking at life. When you're 26, anything over, any amount of time is a long time for a 26-year-old. And his family owned country clubs and nursing homes and this whole chronic pain aspect to this. I mean, I agree with you about the insanity, because if you know anybody who has to live with chronic pain, it can make you crazy. It literally can make you crazy. It really can. Like, I can see that for him. I'm also thinking, is there an opioid component to this? Like, did he become addicted to painkillers? It looked like he had a major spinal fusion. I mean, they're showing the x-rays everywhere. It looks like there's major hardware in his lower back. And that's a major surgery for a young person. It could debilitate you for life. And pain can make you crazy. We don't know. I can't wait to hear more about this, but it's heartbreaking. And also, would he take a plea to spare his family, who's so well known and highly regarded and, influential, let's say, to spare them the shame and public humiliation of this?
I just feel that given everything we know about how he planned this, from the writing of the words on the bullets to the the particular victim that he chose, to the Monopoly money, to the manifesto, all of that kind of stuff. I do not see this person going quietly. I see this ending, however it ends, with somehow him making sure he's sitting in front of a microphone to kind of continue to proselytize his message. You know, I don't think you go through all of that trouble and then sit quietly through a trial. I don't know.
I mean, look, the kid's a genius, right? He was a valedictorian at his very upscale all boys private school. He went to Penn. He's an Ivy League graduate. I mean, he's not a dumb guy. So maybe he does have some sort of mission statement that he wants the world to hear about.
Well, fascinating. Like you said, not to be lost. Completely tragic, completely awful, but just fascinating the way that this is all kind of played out. But we will have to continue to watch it because that is our show for this week. Melanie, thank you so much for coming on. Please tell us, where can people find out more about you? Tell us about your YouTube channel, social media. Let us know.
Sure. I have a YouTube channel. It's just under my name, Attorney Melanie Little, and we do live trials. We cover true crime. We cover other cases of note throughout the country and worldwide. And also sometimes celebrity divorces is a popular thing that I do. So you can find me there.
And do yourselves a favor and check it out. If you guys haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to her channel. She does excellent, excellent work if you're interested in true crime and especially the legal side of all of that. I am your host, Josh Ritter. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Joshua Ritter ESQ. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts and coverage on even more true crime cases, you can also check out my brand new YouTube channel, Courtroom Confidential. And of course, you can find all of our Sidebar episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And we would like to hear from you. If you've got questions or comments you would like us to address, please tweet us your questions with the hashtag TCN Sidebar. And thank you for joining us at the True Crime News Sidebar.